Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass.
And what's it gonna do?
It doesn't matter how you're doing.
Woo! Wheeling, dealing, limousine right, jet flying.
Can you dig it, sucker?
Would you please shut the hell up?
You don't know what hard times are, Daddy.
The cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Look at the human rumble.
What up, what up? Welcome to episode 158 of Keep The Kayfabe. I'm Mike, sitting here with my boys, ready to talk some wrestling. All right, gang, WrestleMania 40 has come and gone, and boy, oh boy, 2 nights of action-packed thrillers. We've had huge belt changes that we are going to get to. We're going to recap the matches that we covered in our prediction show last week. If you haven't listened to it, feel free to listen to that first before you get into the results show. Yes, super, super exciting stuff to get to this evening. But before we do, let's introduce the boys real quick. He's over in Glendale, and a man that keeps it regal, Steve Grobschmidt. How are you, Grabby?
Crowd is here, about to blow, waiting for me to start the show. Out the curtain lights go up, I'm home.
Whoa!
Whoa.
Pretty major stuff, monumental stuff there. We're definitely going to get into that match.
We'll discuss it.
All right, let's go over to Ohio. Introduce the man with the golden pipes. His name is Gary Williams. What up, Gary? How are you?
Fly, Eagles, fly on the road to victory. Fight, Eagles, fight. Score a touchdown. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Hit 'em low, hit 'em high. And watch our Eagles fight. Fly, Eagles, fly on the road to victory. EAGLES. Interrupt a WrestleMania match. Good for the Eagles to interrupt a WrestleMania match. It's very nice. My second choice tonight would have been a total eclipse of the heart, because I, my friends, was very fortunate to be in the zone of totality today for the eclipse, and it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And that is being honest. It was one of the coolest things. Literally, it goes from night to day within matters of seconds. It was very cool. So.
Awesome. Yeah, pretty incredible stuff. And you've been to a couple Eagles games, right, Gary?
I have, actually. So yes. So yes, I have cousins that have tickets, and it was very cool to kind of look at that stadium.
Crazy? Is it as crazy as it sounds? Like those fans, they're just so brutal and
I will
awful?
tell you, I was told originally not to wear my Packer garb because we were at the Packer Eagles game. But I will say, as long as you're being respectful, people are not gonna give you too much jazz. But there were definitely people who were getting the business, and they deserved to get the business. So I was a little surprised with the Philly crowd on the first night, because it obviously must have been so cold for them or something, because they were not jazzed up. But yeah, I will say they came out for night 2 for sure.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
But cool stadium. It was a very neat place to watch a football game, and I imagine would have been cool to watch WrestleMania. I had cousins that actually went.
Wow, that's pretty dope.
Yeah,
awesome.
It was really cool.
Perfect. All right, let's get over to Bayview and talk to a man who keeps it freshly squeezed. His name is Matt Michelson, but he's also our friendly neighborhood Val Venus. Val, what you talking about tonight? Is it because of the eclipse today?
You know it, Mike. But first and foremost, hello, ladies. Tonight, we embrace the magic of the cosmos as we bear witness to this celestial phenomenon. Let the eclipse remind us of the grandeur of the universe and the boundless wonders that await us beyond the stars and under the sheets. So grab your glasses, my friends, and prepare to have your minds blown because tonight, under the watchful gaze of the heavens above, we're in for the ride of a lifetime. It's the eclipse, baby, and it's gonna be absolutely astronomical.
Wow.
Excellent.
Thank you, Val. And I'm going to make sure not to look directly at it, too.
Yeah.
I've heard it blinds you if you do that. So, yeah, Val would probably agree with you.
Unfortunately,
Dude,
never mind.
It's so weird, too, because I have the WWE Network on from last night from WrestleMania. And Val Venus actually just ran out on the Royal Rumble that's on on TV right now, which is crazy. It's like
that's
a
crazy
rerun of maybe 99, Royal Rumble
that's
99.
Awesome.
Val, while you did that, Matt, which was an amazing cut, too. Amazing writing.
Just like the eclipse, it's all written in the stars.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, speaking of written in the stars, boy, WrestleMania had quite the script this last weekend. We have the prediction show, as I mentioned, that we recorded last week, and tonight we're going to run down the results. But before we get to those results and see who's going to be King Booker, I want to know your thoughts on just where wrestling is headed now with WWE, because we've seen a major shift. Matt, do you want to start us off, man?
Yeah, as a listener, if you're listening to the show, you probably already know a lot of what we're going to be talking about tonight. But if you're a casual wrestling fan, first and foremost, welcome to the show. We hope you enjoy it and continue to listen. WrestleMania, and I think this one in particular, is sort of a tale of two halves. One half is the beginning of the Triple H era, and they alluded to this a lot throughout both nights of the show. The second half is, and this is more me speculating, but I think WWE is making a conscious effort to target lapsed fans, and that could be folks who watched WWE years ago. You know, I was talking to my mom yesterday, who, by the way, hi mom, if you're listening to this, thanks for listening. She has not watched wrestling probably since I was in my teens. For whatever reason, long story, but we used to watch wrestling together every week. She was as big a fan as I was. I think when she heard that The Rock was going to be on and that it was free on Peacock in particular, she was like, okay, I got to catch this, right? And I think a lot of people who know of The Rock or The Undertaker or John Cena or any of these names that we're going to get into tonight have tuned in to watch WrestleMania 40. So between it being sort of the closing of an old chapter, the beginning of a new chapter, there's a perfect opportunity for fans to jump in. It's names they're familiar with. It's the beginning of a new story. So what better time to tune in than now? Overall, I think the show in general was up and down. It ended on an insane high, and we'll get into all the details here as we get into it.
Awesome. Yeah, very good. Steve, any comments?
So, as we know, I was the lapsed fan that got last minute FOMO and actually got the WrestleMania. But, you know, probably second only to Charlie on the podcast, I've probably been the most negative about WWE for many years now. And okay, night one, I think, had its ups and downs. I mean, there are definite really good moments like Gunter and Zayn and all that. But some borderline duds in there too. But night two was really good, I thought, and some really good memories. And I don't know, it kind of put a little wind back in my sails of like I think I texted Gary at one point and said, you know what, I think maybe I need to get out of the business of overthinking and kind of, you know, you build up these narratives in your head. I'm not going to sit here and suddenly say WWE is like, you know, the Mother Teresa of businesses and all that crap. But also you can get a little hung up on things and get too negative. And I don't know that I want to be that fan. So yeah, I thought some of the things that jumped out at me real quick was the emphasis on pro wrestling. Like they even said the words numerous times night two, like that plus Stephanie saying, you know, it's the Paul Levesque era and all of that. And the things that Matt said, it's like, it definitely felt like it was the start of a new chapter for them. Like sort of essentially saying the Vince era's dead. Mm-hmm. So that was interesting to me, and I think Cody being a champion to go into that era is probably another telltale sign, because he's kind of as old school as a young guy can get. And yeah, I think it's an ultimate homage to we can be as cynical as we want about people. Triple H was deeply connected to Dusty, in NXT. So I don't think he is such a bitter man that the throne busting up and all that was like gonna damn Cody. In hindsight, it clearly didn't. And I think this really was like recognizing Dusty and all the hard work Cody did. So I don't know. I thought it was a really strong ending to a WrestleMania. Definitely one of the better WrestleMania endings in the great pantheon of them.
Totally.
And I've always been on that negative side of Cody, and I got invested. I guess that tells you something about good storytelling. I was rooting for him.
Yeah, totally, man. Gary?
I love the direction that they're going. I still think that from an in-ring wrestling perspective, they're not my cup of tea yet. I would still say that I'm a little bit more old school still in terms of the desire to actually see some decent wrestling matches. And I think that for me, that's kind of where, but here's the thing, like at the end of the day, I did really enjoy the weekend. And what I enjoyed was the fact that it actually was watchable. And I love to be able to, I'm at a place now where I really am not in for the competition between all of them. Everyone has their own different flavor of ice cream they like, and everyone should just like that flavor, and it is what it is, right? And I think that this weekend was a prime example of some of that, in which, they did a masterful job over the last couple of years building a lot of these stories. With that being said, it took them a long time to get to where they are, and it will be interesting to see who picks up now after Roman Reigns, because for all intents and purposes, he was the focal point of a story for a couple years, and it'll be interesting to see how they replace that and move forward. I also really enjoyed their movement back towards realism as opposed to, kayfabe and the announce team. I thought Michael Cole was about as good as he's been in terms of how I've heard it. He was very, very rarely did I feel like he was being scripted. You could just tell the change. You could tell everyone was a little bit different. The ring announcer, Samantha Irvin, she just is getting tons of accolades online, and she was really good. Like, she's a very good ring announcer. And so from a production standpoint, they are just so light years ahead of everyone. I would just hope that we can see better wrestling going forward, because, it's hard to watch Raw and it's hard to watch SmackDown. I've said this before, but if you actually, like, on Hulu, you can see where the commercials are lined up. It's disgusting to look at. Even on the WrestleMania pay-per-view, how many commercials there were.
Yeah.
It was so hard. It's just so hard as a wrestling fan to watch that. I guess you get what you pay for $5.99 a month versus a $50 pay-per-view. In AEW, I still contend that from top to bottom, an AEW pay-per-view is much more solid in terms of wrestling. But the WWE has really made a huge emphasis on really renewed storytelling and long-term storytelling that really does. It matters. The emotional connection matters. It always will in wrestling. And but I am one to end this by saying, like, I'm getting tired of the comparisons. I'm even a little disappointed to even see if this is even remotely true that the Young Bucks are going to show the video footage of CM Punk. Like, we just got done talking about how it's time to move on and be professionals. And I just hope that they're not going to stoop down to that level, and that it really is a spoof. But with that being said, Lots of good to look forward to. This is probably one of the greatest times to be a wrestling fan that I've experienced in a while.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, man.
What do you think, Mike?
I mean, I really thought that like the record thing was the investment, and like they got so close with Roman Reigns to like do it. But then I thought about it. I was like, yeah, if it is under a new bannership, it is just be like the ultimate fuck you, like get it so close, and then have like this Ken Barbie doll, Cody Rhodes legacy guy. Like it made so much sense. I should have stuck with my pick with Cody. We'll get to it later, but anyway. But yeah, so we're under a new like guy leadership, and people in the back are super supportive of him too. So I think the attitude around backstage is going to maybe translate onto the screen into in-ring, I feel like. And then also, yeah, I mean, Netflix is coming up with Raw. Like, just it's going to be, they have the talent is all there. They got quality wrestlers. They just need to be configured in a proper way, and that's going to take some time. And I think this was a really good WrestleMania under this new leadership and banner that makes me feel optimistic. And I'll leave it at that. So, yeah, tons of shit going on in AEW, tons of shit going on in WWE. So, yeah, WrestleMania, night one. It was kind of a snoozer, eh? That's what I read from your text messages, because I was at Nation of Languages. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, I went on kind of a rant about this band, Nation of Language. They didn't play my favorite song again.
Again.
Yeah,
Twice in a
man.
row.
And honestly, I hope they never do, because it's the smartest thing that they could ever do, because it will draw me to their show every single time. And the show is still awesome. They don't write a bad song. So anyway, just had to fill you all in. I didn't watch night one, but I know the boys did. So what did you think? We knew it was cold, so maybe that had to do with the attitude of the crowd, or were the matches not as awesome?
I think night one was definitely not as good as night two. I think there's no debating that. Triple H at the post night one press scrum did make a comment. I can't recall if one of the reporters asked him a question about the crowd and just the state of, whether they were too quiet or a little hostile, or exactly how it was framed. But I know he had said something along the lines of them being freaking cold. And you could totally see it. And I don't blame them. I mean, you're sitting outside for several hours in the cold. People are wearing winter jackets when you go back and watch the show. It could not have been comfortable or pleasant. And not to jump ahead to night two, but the first thing Stephanie McMahon said on night two when she opened the show was something about how it was a lot nicer outside on night two, and the weather was a lot better than night one, and everybody cheered right away. So clearly the weather had something to do with it on night one. Obviously the booking is going to play into it as well. And if you look at the card for both night one and night two, I think night one started with a great match, which we'll get into here in just a moment. Then the middle of the card was pretty steady, just not really anything all that amazing. Like, there's nothing in my mind, frankly, that stands out. I think Sami Zayn versus Gunther was a pretty solid match. And then you get to the end of the show, everybody was just waiting for the tag match. Both nights were bookended by matches that either were really good or everybody wanted to see. Everything in the middle, you could take it or leave it, I think. But to actually get into the card, I know the show kicked off, I believe, Mike, am I right that it's one of the matches we had predicted last week? Is that true?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. It's Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch. And we all picked Rhea Ripley. And I hear this was match of the night on night one.
This match fucking ruled. Yeah. Becky Lynch has always had good, great matches at stadium shows. Rhea Ripley recently gave Nia Jax I think the best match of her career at the Elimination Chamber Stadium show. I knew it would be one of the better matches of the night, and it was, particularly for night one. Michael Cole, we were talking about Michael Cole just a moment ago. He mentioned that Becky Lynch had strep throat and a fever of, I think it was 104 degrees. Now, if that's true, hats off to Becky Lynch for working her ass off and putting on a really great match with Rhea Ripley. if it's a work, well, she can always say that and run it back with Rhea under the guise of, hey, I wasn't at 100%. Let's go again.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing WWE, that could happen with the new era. We'll see where they take it. But overall, this was solid. Not only is Rhea a hit on social media, she's clearly a great worker. She's got great character, just a solid women's champion. I think it was a smart decision keeping the title on her. But I've already said a bunch about the show, about this match. Steve, what did you think about the match?
I thought it was really good. I would probably say it was at least for me, the second best match of night one. I had little doubt these two. I mean, they can go, obviously. Rhea, but I've been a fan of Rhea since, I mean, that was back when I watched NXT before Vince ruined it the first time. And she was, like early 20s, and you could tell she had the it factor and she was going to be a big star. And it's just nice to see they invested in her and actually have followed through with that, which is, I think, exactly what I said on the prediction show. And yeah, she's got a presence about her. I thought it was a really good match. I obviously I picked Ripley, but as we all did, but I think that's just the right outcome. You got to strap a rocket on her and watch her go, because Becky's done it all already. She's at a different point in her career. I don't think the gold does much for her, so I was happy to see the result. Stellar match.
Awesome. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. Gary, did you see it?
I did, and it was a good opener. I guess for me overall, night one, it kind of felt like a glorified house show. To be honest, it was interesting just how almost I had gotten myself excited about a couple of the matches, and I really feel like there was a couple real significant letdowns. And I did listen to, and listening to some podcasts and some reviews from people. I think it's important for us also to acknowledge, like, anytime any of us doesn't like a match or doesn't like what happens, it is not in any stretch of the imagination to diminish the athleticism or the professionalism of any of the wrestlers that are there. It's just, there are just some matches that are just better than others. And I would say Rhea and Becky were about midstream for me for the night. It was a good opener, but there was something about it that just didn't really get that crowd really as juiced up. Yes, it was cold, but still it was a little something flat about it. And I think it may have had something to do with Becky being sick, but all in all, it was the right decision by WWE. I think it was a good move. I hope Becky and Seth take some time away now after this weekend. And yeah, and I actually, to be honest, I'm looking forward to maybe reading Becky's book, because I saw that they were quoting it during or before the match, and she was walking up, and I don't know, it'd be kind of interesting to see what that's all about. So.
Fantastic. All right, let's get to the next match. It was Jey and Jimmy Uso. This was another unanimous pick by all of us. We all picked Jey Uso to be victorious over his twin brother Jey, and we were correct. So what did you guys think of this match? Steve, do you want to leave it off with this one? Do you have any opinions for us?
Honestly, okay, I can separate the two things I'm about to say. One, I've never been an Uso fan. I think I went on a rant last time. I've never gotten it. I mean, they're fine tag team. Anyway, I'm going to put that aside and say, I think objectively, I can say, given as much as was put into this match in terms of the build and what was it? This story's been, a year plus in the making. And you just had to imagine these two brothers had to be just stoked as hell to have a WrestleMania moment together. I thought it was a really flat match. Like, as much as I don't like them, I was still thinking this is going to be really good. And it was just okay. And that surprised me a lot. And I don't know it just seemed like it was just in like this safe gear. It was almost maybe to Gary's point about a house show thing. It's like came off as like a Raw match versus something really special. And it really shouldn't have been. So I was disappointed in it, and not because I don't like them.
Well, when you see Gunther and Sammy,
yeah,
and then you watch Seth and Drew, and then you see, just the progression of those types of things. I wonder to some extent if it's because both guys truly are tag team guys, and I'm not sure if they know how to really perform in a singles match. But all I'll say about the match is I was so jacked. I thought this was going to be match of the night. And the only thing it was, ironically, was an extremely good commercial for the sponsor, which was Dude Wipes. I don't know if any of you noticed, but Dude Wipes was the sponsor of this match, and it was shitty. So, I mean, that's the irony for me.
Yeah,
Nice.
I don't honestly have a lot to add to what you guys said, and I typically like to pick apart the reasons why I either like or don't like matches on these shows. And I feel like I'm doing our listeners a disservice because frankly, I can't really find anything I liked or didn't like about this match. Flat is the word Steve used, and I think that's the one word if you wanted to sum up this entire match. And it's a shame. And I talked about it a little bit last week on our preview show. I think I made the comment that this was probably I don't want to say the weakest build, but it probably like the least build of any storyline surrounding the bloodline. And unfortunately, I think that kind of showed itself in this match just with how flat it was. And you just get the feeling as a fan that the moves they're doing didn't really matter for anything. And so at the end of the match, I was happy to see Jey Uso win. I think it was the right result based on the story they told over a year ago with Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso and Jey leaving the bloodline and how that all played out. But at the end of the day, yeah, unfortunately, I think they kind of missed the boat on this match in terms of timing. If I had to boil it down to anything, I would say maybe it's just bad timing. Maybe they should have pulled the trigger on it a little sooner. Thankfully, it was the right result, though. So I'll leave it at that.
Truth.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I'm happy we got the points. We were doing good. So we only reviewed 3 matches on night 1, and this was the third. It was the headliner, and this one had the most stipulations in it too, and we were not in unanimous decisions. So let me run down the match for you here real quick and who we picked. I picked Roman and Rock to win. Steve picked Cody and Seth to win. Gary, Roman and Rock to win. Matt, Roman and Rock to win. So Cody and Seth lost, so Steve did not get the point there. You can gain a point by picking the person that pinned the other person. So 2 points are on the line. I said The Rock would pin Cody, which was the result. So
that's true.
I swept it. I got the trifecta, which was huge. Steve was nowhere close since he picked it wrong, so he got the opposite of the trifecta. Sorry, Steve. Gary got Cody as the pin, and then Matt got The Rock as the pin. So you got 2 points in that round. I was the only one that got the 3. Gary and Matt with 2. Sorry, Steve. But I heard this match was like an hour long. It took forever for these guys to get down to the ring.
Yes.
So tell us about this.
So I would say, Mike, that this actually does remind me a little bit, as everyone knows, I love to think back to old school wrestling. You know, a lot of main events back in the day were an hour long. Now, this one didn't have an hour worth of wrestling, but I'm not sure that those did either, with a lot of rest holds and all kinds of other stuff going on. So for me, it was cool that they would dedicate that much time to all the pomp and circumstance that would go along with it. In terms of the match itself, I actually thought at first I was kind of like, all right, what's going on? It was very slow getting going. And, but then all of a sudden it hit a gear and it was very cool. A very good sequence of moves. I like that they went out into the crowd. I like, what I think I really like about it, besides the ending, they did a really phenomenal job, I think, of catching Cody's expression while Rock and Roman were leaving, teasing the Rock Roman with the spear. But I do think in the end, one of the coolest parts about this was the Rock pinning Cody, which I think, not to spoil it for anyone, I believe that was the cliffhanger left it with Raw just a few minutes ago, which is The Rock reminded Cody that he did pin him. And I thought that was a really cool kind of little nugget that they left off there.
I couldn't agree more. This match, so in terms of the match itself, I was kind of flat on my feelings towards this match, even while it was happening. I think this match did exactly what it was supposed to do. Gary, you talked about it a little bit. The entrances alone were 20 minutes long. The match was around, I want to say 40 to 45 minutes. So overall, yeah, Mike, you called it about an hour all in. Being it's WWE and it's WrestleMania, I personally had no problem with the entrances being that long. That's part of WWE. Like you said, Gary, the pomp and circumstance, that is what separates them from their competitors. They have the nostalgia they can play on, the drama. That's where they thrive. The production value is their bread and butter. So I'll give them that. The match itself, Gary, you just called out a few spots that, frankly, I don't even remember. And maybe it's because the match was so long, my brain just couldn't remember all of it. I think I do remember the result just being the people's elbow was the finish to the match. And I mean, my God, like what better way to finish it than have The Rock do his finisher and finish the match, right? So overall, this left me just wanting more, which thankfully this was night one of WrestleMania. So we still had one more night to go. Again, I could talk about this match for a while, but it wouldn't be anything of value. All I'll say is this match did what it was supposed to do. Steve, I guess, would you agree with that, or do you have any other thoughts on this one?
I would agree, and I was an idiot for picking it the other way. I got caught up in my head that a good way to do dissension between The Rock and Roman, but they essentially accomplished that with the logical booking that eluded me. I mean, you had that spear that Gary mentioned. That's all they needed to just be like, that and The Rock being the one to get the pin. And even the way that went about it, where Roman did all the work and then just sort of does, I wouldn't even say reluctant, but sort of like this, The Rock just being entitled, like, okay, give me the tag. I'm going to finish this off. And that, I mean, apparently that's going to play to the story going forward, which is what I expected. It's like, The Rock and Roman aren't going to stick together. So, yeah, it served its purpose. It was a good match. It was a fun match. And like you said, leaving people wanting more. So, yeah, mission accomplished, as they say.
Nice. Yeah, I still haven't watched night one because I wanted to watch it on Sunday before night two, but they didn't have it up on Peacock on demand yet. And I just didn't have the time today to get back to it. But I would like to watch some of I definitely want to watch that match. I want to see The Rock. Would you say it lived up to the hype?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, it's The Rock. It's like the crowd was into it.
That's one of the nice things. They
protected The Rock too.
Yeah. Sorry to talk over you, Steve. I was going to say the same thing. They did a great job protecting The Rock. And all The Rock had to do in this whole thing was stand there and stare at the crowd right before he pulls his elbow pad off. I mean, for me, that was it. I was like, great. This is what I wanted to see. That's what the crowd wanted to see, and they got it.
I wouldn't have classified it as the greatest tag team match of all time because I just don't. I don't necessarily know from that standpoint, Mike, to answer your question whether it really led up to the hype, but it was very serviceable for exactly what it needed to be, which is to truly set up night two. And with all due respect to night two, like, not to jump too far ahead, but they did a bang up job with that last match. And so I think if any more had happened on night one, it would have detracted from night two, which is not what you'd want to do. It's kind of like when we were talking about the AEW pay-per-view with Swerve not winning the title, right? Like, and yet, because what was the big moment going to be on that show, right? It was Sting. And this was kind of one of those things where I think at some level, right? Like they had to figure out a way to get to get Rollins beat up. They had to figure out a way to do a lot of things. They told a good story in the match, and it really left a cliffhanger. Not so much, a bit of a cliffhanger for night two.
Nice. Yeah, so I did actually get to watch night two of WrestleMania. Matt actually came over and we had a little nice time. Dipped into some root beer moonshine.
Yeah,
holy shit.
A little too of a nice time, but go on.
Yeah. Yeah, and we had our neighborhood friendly wrestler Baxter Belafonte, friend of the channel, basically the Alec Baldwin of the show. like Alec is for SNL. He's been on a bunch of times. He'll be coming back on soon too. So we had a really nice time. Had some food, had a little camaraderie, and yeah, it was fun. So this night two opened up with the match that we predicted. It was Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre for the title of it's Intercontinental Champion.
World, World Heavyweight Championship.
World Heavyweight. Excuse me, my bad. Yes, sorry about that. I picked Seth Rollins. So did Gary. He actually kicked out from McIntyre, so bad use of the kick out. Sorry. I hate it when that happens, don't you, Gary? And that serves you right for
it does.
Bragging about I've never kicked out.
No.
That's okay.
Well,
and then Steve and Matt actually picked Drew McIntyre to win, which is pretty great.
Give the people what they want.
Mm-hmm. And Gary, you mentioned that you knew like the people that, because the intro of Seth Rollins thing, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, I thought, like, doesn't this belong in New Orleans? Like, this seems really weird for Philadelphia. This doesn't make any sense at all. So can you enlighten the listeners of who these people are?
Yeah, the Mummers do a huge parade in Philly every year, and it is a group called the Mummers. And so, yeah, it's actually it was really funny to see. In fact, that was a part when my wife had walked in and was like, "Oh, the Mummers from Philly," because all of her family's from out that way. So it was really cool. I will say that from an entrance standpoint, that was pretty awesome. Now, my only caveat to my kick out and losing this match is none of us really won it when you really think about it.
That's not true. Drew McIntyre did win.
Yes, technically. But so while I was wrong in how it happened, I believe if you listen to the tape, you'll go back and you'll realize that I did actually call Damian Priest with the But I
knew someone did, right?
But with that being said, I acknowledge my loss. I acknowledge my loss. But what a banger match! I mean, this was awesome. It was hard hitting. They threw the kitchen sink at each other. This is what I was hoping the Usos would do to each other, and they're freaking brothers, for Christ's sake. These two guys, man, it was awesome. And how they played in Damian Priest and Punk, I mean, the whole thing was really well done. To say that it wasn't predictable would truly probably be a little bit of a lie, because I do think in the end it was pretty predictable. But that whole sequence, the way they did it, really well done and a great way to start the show. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I was just about to say I agree with you in the sense that I think it's predictable, but none of us predicted it, right? I mean, we did in like, half of us predicted Drew McIntyre winning, but that's only 50-50. None of us called, well, you kind of alluded to Damian Priest maybe cashing in, but then the whole Punk element, I mean, I think once you see it and you see how it plays out, I think the reason maybe you're saying it's predictable is it makes sense in the storyline.
Yeah. And
I think that's what made this match so great. So I couldn't agree with you more though, Gary. The moment the bell rang in this match, Drew McIntyre delivers a Claymore kick to Seth Rollins and covers him. And Mike, Baxter, and I are all sitting there yelling like, oh my God, it's over. And Seth Rollins kicks out immediately. I will say, there were more near falls in this match than any other match that I bid on. And I think that's a good sign of a good wrestling match where you really just don't know. And it takes you from point A to point B and back and forth. And you're just on an emotional roller coaster ride. It was an absolute blast of a match. The post-match angle, I actually thought was really interesting. I want to say it was sometime last week. Maybe it was when we had our prediction show, but I remember thinking to myself, I knew Punk was going to be on commentary. I didn't know for sure how that was going to play out. Part of me thought to myself, I bet you his arm is actually okay. Because Punk is the ultimate worker when it comes to injuries. Now, don't get me wrong. The guy gets hurt all the time. But the way he recovers from it or weaves it back into a storyline, nobody does it better. So the moment he starts pulling off that arm brace, I'm like, okay, it's on. This storyline between him and McIntyre is going full speed ahead now. Damian Priest has the title, so Drew can do his own thing with Punk without the title involved. Maybe the title gets involved at some point down the line. I don't know where Damian Priest goes after this. I feel like, oh, it's great. He cashed in. Cool. What's next for the World Heavyweight title? I honestly don't know. Damian Priest did participate in the WrestleMania post conference, which, by the way, for those of our listeners, if you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. Check it out. It's actually pretty interesting.
His interview was awesome.
His was really good. Awesome. He gives credit to Seth Rollins for turning the World Heavyweight Championship into the workhorse title. Triple H even says, if you want to make a new title and you want to make it mean something, give it to Seth Rollins and let him go to work. Frankly, I don't know how much I agree with that. I have my own thoughts on Seth Rollins, but setting that aside for a minute, Priest kind of has it in his head that he's got a high standard to live up to, and he's shown that he can have good matches and he's got a good character going. Hopefully this is just the next little push he needs to get him to that point. But overall, this was a slam dunk for everyone involved. Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I think I'm a huge McIntyre fan, and so I was very excited about this, even though I don't like Seth very much. But it was good. I mean, I was making snide comments in the beginning about how Seth coming out was like Adam Rose wants his gimmick back, or no hey Jose, but it's fine. I don't like his character, but the dude like busted ass 2 nights in a row and sold the knee like $1 million, which was pretty great. And yeah, you guys summed it up perfectly. It's like it wasn't so predictable that we were sitting there on our show saying CM Punk's going to cost him the title and all that, but they laid it out completely logical. Drew couldn't pass up constantly talking shit to Punk and then dwelling on it at the end there after he won the title. And then it's like something's going to happen here, but I didn't think Punk was well enough to have an altercation. So that was an unexpected surprise. And yeah, I know Damian Priest is the ultimate like hard work pays off guy too. I mean, when they signed him to NXT years ago, it was like, oh, he's kind of unnotable from Ring of Honor, but not anybody that would have stood out in a crowd to me. And he look what he's done. And now he's one of these is the number 2 guy in the company. So good for him.
When he said in the post event interview that 10 years ago he was homeless. What just an unbelievable transformation. Yeah. I mean, and just Mike, I did a little quick research for you. The Mummers Parade is held on New Year's Day in Philly. It is a parade. It started in 1901, and it's the longest running continuous folk parade in the United States.
Unreal.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I had no clue. And they're out of Philadelphia, and there's a lot of them too, eh?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. It's like a
100?
huge, a lot of them. They're all about celebration, fun, and family.
Hell yeah. Just like Philly fans.
Although I gotta say, who Seth Rollins' worst absolute, like he looked like a clown. His
that outfit was terrible.
Just obnoxious. Like I don't get it. I just don't get it.
I don't know. It was weird because it was funny. CM Punk was the one that was like, look at this clown when he came out, literally what he said. And then you look at CM Punk and he's in a 3-piece suit with wingtip shoes. And it's like, this just looks just so weird. Like,
yeah, who's this?
Like
yeah,
him saying, you look like a clown.
It'd be like Seth might look like a clown, but you're a sellout, dude.
Yeah, exactly. A bootlicker. Anyway. So yeah, that was weird. Yeah, I'm happy for Damian Priest. I like Money in the Bank cash in at WrestleMania. Yeah. I mean, Seth Rollins was involved with the greatest heist in WWE history, whatever. So it's kind of cool to have that moment for Damian Priest in an outdoor football stadium. I don't know. It just looks so good on camera. And there's a big enough crowd there to get so hyped for it that it just makes so much more sense than just doing it on like, I don't know, some other show. So yeah, happy about that. Happy to see the direction of both those people. And then Seth Rollins will probably take a little break. I'm glad about that. Did he get hurt? Did I read today?
I'll tell you what, he did not look good. Like he was, if he did not re-injure himself, I'd be surprised. I didn't necessarily see or read anything personally, but like he was noticeably limping as he was leaving the ring, and I can't believe that given all that they were doing, that he would continue to kayfabe in that way. He might have, but boy, he was banged.
There's some stiff punches and kicks in that match, and lots of times it looks like they got dropped on their head too. So I don't know. Yeah. They might have both not have been 100%. But anyway, let's go forward. We have Logan Paul versus Kevin Owens and Randy Orton in this triple threat match. And, arguably the result of this match could have went in any one of these directions because, we could talk about it as we shoot it around here. But we all decided that Logan Paul would be victorious because he is like this fresh face that gets tons of attention, and this new era, and he's doing a hell of a job, and his entrance is going to be lit always, so it's going to be awesome. And he retained. We all picked Logan Paul. He won the match, so yeah, we all got a point there. But who wants to start us off on this match?
This match was, I would say, right there with a lot of other matches in the middle of the card on both nights. I think when we had our prediction show last week, I think we assumed this was going to be a match that stood out, and rightfully so. You've got Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, and Logan Paul, who he may be very new to professional wrestling, but he's had some of the most memorable matches of the last few years. So you think you put those three guys together, you would have something special. I don't know that I would go that far. There was some fun moments, I think, between Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. Clearly they teamed up together to take out Logan Paul. Obviously that didn't work out. Logan Paul ended up retaining his title throughout this match. Frankly, this is another one of those where I wish I had a lot more I could add to it. There just wasn't a lot. The one thing about this match I do recall that actually rubbed me the wrong way, and this is going to sound silly of me, but there was a moment in the match where I believe it was Kevin Owens kicked out of the RKO, and they treated it like it was nothing. Like Michael Cole was just like, 0-2, and they moved on. The RKO in WWE is sort of comparable to the one-winged angel in AEW. Nobody kicks out of the RKO. Like, show me a clip of the last time somebody did that. And you would think if they were to do that, it would mean something. And in this case, it was just, another move in a match that commentary just kind of glossed over, and the fans didn't even really, cling on to either. Being that the fans didn't really cling on to it, I guess it doesn't really matter, right? Like, they didn't get hung up on it like I am right now. It's just one of those things, I think, as a hardcore wrestling fan, you see things like that. So for me, that was one moment in the match that kind of soured me on it a little bit more. Overall, yeah, I think it's the right result. It was a little disappointing seeing how right before the match began, Kevin Owens is coming out in Gorilla. Sami Zayn's there waiting for him and tells him, okay, now it's your turn to win a title tonight, right? And in that moment, I'm thinking to myself, Kevin Owens is winning this. Like, why else would they do that? That's amazing. Like, they got to make good on that promise, but then they didn't, which was kind of jarring, I think, from the vibe that they created over both nights. So overall, I think I've said what I need to say. Steve, I feel like you have some thoughts on this match, though. What did you think?
I guess one thing I'll say is that I have never seen a Logan Paul match before because, as we've established, I don't watch a lot of WWE. Now, his reputation preceded him. I've heard many times from people saying he is really good, and I think he was really good. I think that leap off the top was crazy good. I thought it was fun when Owens did the little offered Orton a ride down to the ring. That was pretty great. Yeah, but you know what? I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot about it until right now. Doing when he got the RKO, I'm like, oh, that's over because that move ends the match. And not only did he kick out, but you're right, they downplayed it. Like they should have made the biggest deal in the world. But they didn't, and that was really weird. At the time, I was like, "Wow, okay," and then I feel like Orton or Owens did a stunner later too. It's just like they kind of downplayed the finishers that are so feared. But I'd say it was an all around solid match, and I guess if its purpose was to elevate Paul, it did it.
Sure. Doesn't his brother have a match against Mike Tyson coming up or something like that?
He does. There's some rumors going around that match may have been canceled. I don't know that that's true, though. Don't quote me on that.
Wow.
Besides the golf cart thing, when Randy tried to pull the RKO on Kevin Owens, that little sequence was absolutely hilarious. And just kind of like, they're like, so you guys, we're going to do this now. I don't know if you could hear the banter in the ring. But it just showed how much fun those guys were having putting that on. I mean, it had to be hard not to, Randy Orton was literally laughing. He's like, you kind of caught me. I thought that was really well played. And then, yes, Logan Paul off the top rope, that frog splash. Holy cow. Like, that was just pretty amazing. And he continues to show just how strong of an athlete he is, and he's getting better and better. As much as I'm not a big fan of his as a person, he is moving and progressing forward. It's pretty remarkable. I will be curious to see what's next for him, though, because it seems like he's starting to become a little bit more full-time after being more part-time. And so, but it'll be interesting to see who the next, the competition will be from here.
Got it. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, I don't really have an opinion on this match. I mean, I'm not really a big Orton fan. I would have been happy for Randy to get it because it's kind of like, give the guy a couple extra WrestleMania moments. Otherwise, but Kevin's very well deserving. But yeah, Paul's just this newcomer, but they do want this to be new and prop these people up. So before we get to the last match, I do want to talk about one thing that happened on night 2 that just came to mind while we were talking just now. We did record a show just a couple weeks ago, worst WrestleMania moments, and there might be a new application into that. Do you guys remember the Street Profits and Bobby Lashley?
They were
trying to set up Bobby really messed that up, I think. I can't believe how that, and that was to close the match. They were supposed to frog splash this guy through the table. It was the last spot, so it's like there's nothing after that. You can't just move on. They had to go outside. Thankfully, there was another table underneath, and they almost messed setting that one up too. It kind of amazes me how nonchalant these guys actually test out the table. Like when they set it up, especially a table that does break, they just. I set up my tables for a living. How I sell candles, I'm making sure the legs are locked. I don't want anything collapsing. These guys, they just, I don't know if they're just trying to act tired. And because if you are in full good health, setting up a table, you're oh, this guy's not hurt. I think they got to try to look like they're hurt or they don't have it together. Oh, I just got to set up this table. But make sure the legs are locked in the final spot at WrestleMania. Hello?
No, it wasn't even the legs being locked. It was the table broke in half from Bobby Lashley poking it with his index finger.
Yeah. I would have argued with you, Mike, about that, the worst WrestleMania moment, about the night before when the gimmicked ladder, which looked like it had styrofoam on the inside, broke as well. But to your point, it was in the tag team ladder match, which, by the way, we did not shout out our guy, R-Truth. Awesome. Great to see him get his flowers. That was so amazing. But to your point, that was Bully Ray talked about it a little bit today on Busted Open. He's like, boys, go get another table. Let's go. He was kind of coaching them up through it. He was really good. I mean, Matt, obviously, that I'm a big fan of the and all that other stuff. I thought that was really well played. They did a really good job with it. But all in all, that match probably also was sponsored by Dude Wipes.
Quick note for our listeners. If you haven't listened to the WrestleMania Watch Along episode that Gary, myself, and my wife Becky did, I believe it was episode 155 or 156, one of those two. Go back, give it a listen. We actually watched TLC 2 from WrestleMania 17, so you can get even more of Bubba Ray Dudley on that episode.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. All right. Well, let's get to the main event of night 2. the big match between Roman Reigns, 1,683 straight days of championship reign of this dude versus beautiful babyface, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. Okay. So I picked Roman Reigns. Steve picked Cody. Gary picked Roman Reigns. Matt picked Cody. So I was in full logic, fully ready to pick Cody to be the champ. But after Gary talked about this title, I really talked myself into like, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they have him break the record? But now looking back, that is stupid. So, I mean, Cody was ready. They made him win the Rumble twice. And why would they have him lose the title match twice? Especially when they want him to be the champ. And there are people out there that want to see him be the champ. So, yeah, dumb pick by me. I dropped that one. The match itself was pretty awesome, though, I feel like. I mean, we saw all these guys run out. The Undertaker came out. John Cena. Some classics. I mean, it was cool. It was a really nice main event. Lots of spices, lots of flavors thrown in on already a very nice entree main event. So I thought this was, pretty spectacular. And then, just sending a ripple through the history books of wrestling itself by overthrowing the long reigning champion of Roman Reigns and the bloodline. And we got a new champ now, Cody. Holy cow.
Gary almost wavered, made me waver when he gave that compelling argument. But then when
Gary,
when Cody ate the pin on night one, I'm like, okay, that would be Vince McMahon level cruelty to have the guy's story end with 2 WrestleMania pin losses. It's like they can't do that, and they didn't, and they delivered on this, and it was like because why? It's a new era. And it was good. And I feel like the legends were used well. They didn't come out like they did in some years past to just make the younger guys look stupid. They actually kind of neutralized each other. It was like it's like a superhero movie where it's like the groups assembled to take each other on and neutralize each other so that there'd be an even playing field. And it was fun. I mean, obviously the Undertaker's music hitting, that was like, I think I yelled holy shit. And it was good. I mean, Cody, say what you want about him. Lord knows I've been up and down critical on him over the years, but it was just it was impossible. I think I'd have to be a little dead inside not to appreciate what happened in that match at the end there. And I mean, I could have done without Bruce Pritchard being called out at the end, but or Nick Khan. But other than that, the whole way they did it and kind of shades of hoisting Dusty up on the shoulders in the NWA, it was cool. It was a very cool moment, and I'm legitimately happy for my close personal friend Cody that you could find us in pictures together.
Yes, that's true. You got his picture taken with his son, or not his son. Well, kind of
his dog, Pharaoh.
His dog, Pharaoh. Yeah, pretty cool. And money went to the dog charity too. You got a picture with the fucking world champ, man. That's pretty cool. And
when he was with the competition.
Yeah. Wild times. Cool. Gary?
I stand by my pick, and here's why. Because at the end of the day, I would have been hypocritical to our listeners, my guy Nick and my cousin Mark, who both we were on the same wavelength. Also, that was my first of the year prediction. I could not go back on that. I'm happy with the result. This is one of those where I'm like, oh, it's all right. It is what it is. I still, I will say that I loved the just pure chaos that was occurring. Like, again, it's an old school trick that was started in Memphis wrestling and in the Mid-South, which is just constant chaos in a match. It's a Jeff Jarrett trait. And I really enjoyed, although at the same token, I did think Cody and Roman started the match strong with a good wrestling match. And then it just all hell broke loose. I still, To be honest, I really don't know about Cody. Like, I get it from the commercialized wrestling fan. I get his appeal, but for me, it'll just be interesting to see what this title reign looks like, and who is he who the next transition will be after that, because in a lot of ways, the jury for me is still out on his ability to truly wave the banner long term in the same way Roman did. I hope I'm wrong by that, for all of our sakes, because it's good, compelling TV. But with that being said, this was an outstanding main event, and excited to just see so many of the pieces of the story, everything from Rollins having told Cody, "Hey, I'll be your shield," and he literally came out in the shield gear, and that's an homage to getting in Roman's head from way back, and just so many little subtle things that came together. Just shows the real brilliance of Triple H and The Rock and Cody and all those guys for putting that together.
I don't tend to swear a ton on these podcasts, but man, this match fucking ruled something fierce. I loved this shit. It was so good. I think the reason I don't feel weird at all saying that is because I feel like it's been such a long time since watching WWE. I've actually felt something for anything I've seen. And a lot of it is because of what Steve talked about a few minutes ago, which is if it were Vince McMahon, it would have been the most cruelly booked thing ever. And as a fan, you get conditioned to that and you expect that. And I was just so happy for once to not expect that and to actually get what I wanted. It's not rocket science. It's pro wrestling. So anyway, I think it's no secret. This was by far my favorite WrestleMania main event. On our prediction show, I said that it'd be a catastrophic business decision to not put the title on Cody. At the post-WrestleMania media scrum, Triple H talked about how this was the biggest WrestleMania of all time, regardless of the metric you look at. And he listed off things like social media, merchandise, the gate ticket sales, all that kind of stuff, right? So clearly, he's got a very business-centric mindset at this point in his career. Part of that mindset involved putting the title on Cody. So despite any personal issues between those two or resentment because of AEW or whatever the case might be, they are working together and they're making it work. So despite whatever argument Gary made last week, I was right. Now, the match itself, I've said this already. I loved that they started the match, and Gary, you said this, but I love that they started the match with 15 to 20 minutes of good wrestling. There were even a few moments when I bit on near falls, even though I think we all knew that there was going to be a lot more to come with, the likes of John Cena, The Undertaker, Seth Rollins. I don't know if you guys noticed, but one thing, I was listening to Brian Alvarez earlier today, and one thing he pointed out, after The Undertaker disappeared, all that was left in the ring was Cody, Roman, and Seth Rollins was actually laying there in the corner in his shield gear. And then there's a chair in the middle of the ring. Roman is the only one up. He has to decide, what am I going to do here? And he chose revenge on Seth Rollins.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the breakup with the Shield from 10 years earlier, which ultimately ended up costing him the title. I know Triple H and everybody at WWE for years has always said, oh, we tell long-term stories. Yeah, you can make anything a long-term story if you back into it. I get that. And I have no doubt that's what they did here. But the way they did it, there was just something about it that I just loved. Mm-hmm. It was almost like they shut the door on this ongoing thing that's been happening for years. Seth always kind of, is needling at Roman. Michael Cole makes a point to bring it up. They always throw back to the Shield and bring that back around. But Roman finally got his revenge. Seth finally got his comeuppance after all this time. It was just like such a sweet detail to throw into this match. So, yeah, I don't think there's any more I can say about it. I thought it was my favorite WrestleMania main event of all time. I was talking to my wife, Becky, and I told her this was maybe an hour ago before we started recording. I genuinely think I'm going to start watching WWE again. I watched it probably up until we started this podcast about 4 years ago. And I just fell off because it just wasn't working for me. AEW had just come out, but there's a lot of new stuff going on here. And I think I'm ready with all the changes that have been made to give it another shot. Maybe I'm crazy, but we'll see how it goes.
All right. Yeah. Well, you've been kind of like on that a little bit, Matt, for about 3-4 months, I want to say. I remember we talked about it on an episode. And yeah, the momentum has been building. Like I said at the top of the show, a reconfiguration takes a lot of time. And, they were building this momentum and they didn't really mess up. Yeah, there was some botches, but the show itself was not a mess up. So they didn't mess up the main event. They didn't mess up these title changes. They knocked it out of the park with the Money in the Bank cash in, and for all the capitalistic things that you listed, Matt. Hey, man, it's looking pretty strong. So yeah, why not invest your time if that's what you choose to do? I'll see if I can get there too. And I know, Matt, life is going to get a little bit more tricky as your sons, who are now 6 months, get a little older, and it's going to be hard to fight for your time to keep those eyes open with all the wrestling going on at TV too. But I wish you luck, my friend. I'm glad you got it.
I'm just going to have to make sure that they're into it as much as I am. I think that's the key.
That's what's up. What's up. Absolutely. Okay, so we got some results to get to, but before we do that, we want to make sure that you guys follow us on Instagram and follow us on Facebook and our YouTube channel at Keep The Kayfabe. Matt's been doing a really good job getting all of our content up there, giving you cool questions to interact with. Please keep submitting your comments and feedback and 5-star ratings. That helps us out a lot, helps us get picked up on the algorithms and the internets and all that good stuff across the world and nation. So yeah, please give us some love if you love us. We'd love to hear from you. So, all right. So speaking of love, these two lovers, Gary and Steve, they came in with the exact same record of 5-3. Not too hot. There was a close second of 6-2, which was me. If I would have picked Cody, Matt and I would have tied and Gary would have retained. But Matt is the outward winner of 7-1.
It's
Very
a new
close
era
to picking a perfect card. If he would have just picked The Rock to pin Cody instead of Rock pinning Rollins in night 1 in that tag team match, he would have gotten the perfect WWE card. And that's why he is ready to be watching some WWE now. He is getting horny. Well, he's horned up for WWE now with this great card. So card picking. So Matt, why don't you give us you can have your congratulations speech. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah. Wow, I honestly didn't expect this. I think that's how all congratulations speeches start. But genuinely,
thank God.
I mean, Mike, have I been King Booker before ever?
I think once.
Yeah,
maybe. We've all held the title.
Have we? Okay. Well, I feel like tonight's a special night because it's been so long. It's like it never happened. I'm just happy to be here and just like Cody Rhodes to have finished the story. I want to thank all of our listeners for making this possible because, hey, without you guys, we wouldn't be doing this show. We probably would have stopped a long time ago and just kind of done this as friends between each other. But we love being able to put this out there for you to entertain you and for you to give back to us. So thank you. Thank you for continuing to listen. Thank you for pushing us to talk about different things and try new types of shows and put out different types of content. We have a blast doing it. We hope you have a blast listening to it, consuming it, and enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we do is we put over the fans. This is because we are fans of wrestling. We're not in the business. We don't really have any business doing what we do. We are just passionate wrestling fans, appreciative of the art. And this show has brought us some great opportunities to run into do some great interviews and have conversations with people we never thought we would have, some Hall of Famers. Pretty awesome. And there's a lot of good stuff coming up the pipeline. And it's only because we keep this mentality of these 3 simple principles that will guide you in life to raise your vibration and to welcome the abundance that the universe is just waiting to give you. You just have to be open to it. You want to know what those 3 things are?
How could I not now?
Well, If you want to seek the abundance from the universe and give it back to you, you have to put this out in the world, too. You yourself have to stay humble, stay hungry, and stay hard.
The new era, Triple H.